Once upon a time, in a quiet corner of a deep, deep forest, stood a tiny old cottage. Inside lived a woodcutter, his two children, Hansel and Gretel, and their stepmother. They were very poor, and most days they had nothing more than a tiny loaf of bread to share. Food grew harder to find, and their stepmother became cold and angry. One evening, after the children went to sleep, she whispered to the woodcutter, "We cannot feed them anymore. Tomorrow we will leave them in the forest." But Hansel was not asleep. He heard every word. He held Gretel's hand tightly. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I will think of something." When the house became quiet, Hansel tiptoed outside. The moon was bright, and the ground shimmered with little white pebbles. He stuffed his pockets full. The next morning, their stepmother gave them the last piece of bread and led them deep into the forest. Hansel dropped one pebble at a time behind him, marking their path. Their parents left them near a huge old tree. Gretel trembled, but Hansel smiled softly. "We will follow the pebbles when the moon comes out." When night fell, the pebbles shone like tiny stars on the ground. Hand in hand, Hansel and Gretel followed them safely back home. Their stepmother was furious to see them return. But the woodcutter hugged them tightly, happy to have them home. That night, the stepmother whispered again, "Tomorrow we will take them even deeper." Hansel tried to collect more pebbles, but the door was locked. In the morning, their stepmother gave them tiny crusts of bread. Hansel dropped crumbs along the path, hoping they would lead them back. They walked farther than ever before. Tall trees twisted above them like giant hands reaching for the sky. Once again, their parents slipped away. Gretel sobbed softly. Hansel tried to sound brave. "We will find the crumbs." But when the moon rose, the crumbs were gone. Birds had eaten every bit. They wandered through the dark forest, scared and tired. Strange sounds echoed between the trees. At last, they curled up under a giant tree and fell asleep, dreaming of warm bread and home. In the morning, a beautiful white bird sang sweetly, hopping along a path. The bird led them to an open clearing, and there stood the most magical house they had ever seen. It was made of gingerbread walls, sugared windows, and candy roofs. Hansel broke a piece of chocolate from the wall, and Gretel licked the sugary window. Everything was delicious. Suddenly, a gentle voice said, "My sweet children, who is nibbling on my house?" An old woman stepped out, smiling kindly. She invited them inside. There were warm cookies, soft chairs, and a cozy fire. Hansel and Gretel felt safe for the first time in days, but the old woman was really a wicked witch who trapped children. The next morning, she grabbed Hansel and locked him in a cage. She forced Gretel to cook, sweep, and carry water all day. Every day, the witch poked Hansel's cage with a stick. "Eat, eat, I want you nice and plump." But clever Hansel held out a chicken bone he found. The witch, who had poor eyesight, thought he was still skinny. After weeks, the witch grew impatient. "Enough, I will cook him tomorrow." She ordered Gretel to heat the large oven. "Is it hot enough inside?" she shouted. Gretel trembled. She knew the witch wanted to push her inside. Gretel pretended not to understand. "How do I check the fire? I am too small." "Foolish child, watch closely," the witch said, leaning into the oven to show her. With all her strength, Gretel pushed the witch inside and slammed the heavy iron door shut. With a loud crackle and a puff of dark smoke, the wicked witch disappeared forever. Gretel hurried to Hansel's cage, found the witch's key, and freed him. Inside the witch's house, they found chests filled with jewels, pearls, and gold coins. They filled their pockets with as much treasure as they could carry. Together, they stepped out of the candy house, which now seemed quiet and empty without the witch. They wandered through the woods, following small paths and listening for familiar sounds. At a river, a friendly duck swam over. "Climb on," it quacked. The duck ferried them across the flowing water. The trees grew thinner, and the children recognized the path leading home. Their father rushed out of the cottage, tears in his eyes. He had been searching for them every day. Their stepmother was no longer there. She had left long ago, taking her bitterness with her. Hansel and Gretel poured the witch's treasure onto the table. "We will never be hungry again," Father whispered joyfully. They rebuilt their home, made it warm and cheerful, and shared their food with travelers and forest animals. Hansel learned woodcutting with his father, and Gretel loved baking sweet buns for everyone. Every evening, they sat around the fire, telling magical stories about forests and candy houses. And so, Hansel and Gretel lived happily ever after, brave, kind, and forever grateful for their magical journey through the enchanted forest. Hope you like the story. See you next time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more magical stories.